Hi folks, welcome back to the Cannabis Corner. I'm your host, Kerry Burns. It's been about 3 months since my last video, and I want to apologize to all the viewers out there for the delay, but we're back, and hope to get them back out to you a little bit stronger than what I've been doing in the past 3 months anyway. But you know, since we had the last video put out, the American citizens of the great state of Alaska, they're now getting to enjoy the benefits of having legal cannabis. Citizens there voted it in. They're able to possess 1 ounce of cannabis in their possession, and I believe they can grow up to 6 or 8 plants without any sort of law enforcement trying to tackle them and throw them to the ground. They join, of course, the ranks of other American citizens of states of Colorado, of course, which, you know, spearheaded the effort, and of course we've got Oregon, Washington, hopefully soon California, and places like Rhode Island, several others on the East Coast, and along with, you know, 26 or so states that have adopted medical marijuana. And now we have the Washington, D.C., which is the latest one for the citizens to vote in legal cannabis. You can't buy it or sell it there, but you can possess it, and which, you know, this is all kind of strange that the cannabis is legal now for certain American citizens in this country, yet the rest of us still are pretty much basically under the scrutiny of the laws that are on the books right now for the individual states that you're from. And this is wrong. We're all American citizens, and Colorado has shown in its 10 years since it's made cannabis legal that there are no problems associated with as far as crime and all that. In fact, there's been a reduction in a lot of the crime base that was there, and you know, this is really something that the American people need to be taking a look at. It's when are we going to wake up and allow this, you know, the same freedoms to all the American citizens, because we're all American citizens. We're all members of the United States of America. It's unfair that certain parts of the country, you know, they're not hassled about cannabis, and other parts of the country, you know, you have these die-hard law enforcement that really, in my estimate, go way overboard. But and then, you know, recently the Drug Enforcement Agency was caught partying with the cartel, and yet we have, you know, pot legal in D.C., yet we have a federal government sitting there that's you know, still business as usual as far as we, you know, in the areas of cannabis. And this just certainly has to change. We've, you know, for a long time now, I applaud the efforts of the people who've been getting medical marijuana passed in their states and all, because, you know, this is one way that the patients there can use this without being hassled by law enforcement and all that. But if we had outright legalization, you know, we wouldn't have to worry about whether a person was certified to get their medical marijuana or not, or have their card or anything like that. I'm all for people using this herb for medicinal purposes. That's one of its key benefits, but it also provides a great recreational herb for a lot of people like myself that basically don't use it for medicinal purposes, even though as we use it recreationally, we know that we are getting medicinal benefits of it. It's like drinking herb teas and other, you know, taking herbal supplements or eating the right kinds of foods. You get the benefits of it, and this herb is no different. It's one of the reasons why, you know, that it shouldn't be turned over to a medical field, because for the most part, you know, in this country for the last 30 or 40 years, the medical field pretty much has scoffed at any type of herbs or herbal remedies or anything like that. And that's what cannabis is. This is an herb. And it just seems unfair to make people, herbalists that have, you know, constantly used this plant for the many, many decades as an herb, to make them have to go and, you know, see a doctor to get a prescription, if you will, to possess cannabis when it's just an herb. Also, too, this part of going to a doctor and treating it like it's a prescription drug that you manufacture in a drug plant, you know, in the country, is wrong also. It's not, you know, cannabis is not a dangerous herb. It's not something that needs to be narcotized like that. And this all just kind of feeds into what the you know, the regulations and everything else is why it's all wrong. And we're seeing a backlog now in these states where the where the cannabis is legal, that they're starting to see shortfalls from their sales tax and all. And the problem is that the cannabis itself is overpriced. And as the supply and demand takes over with the other states growing and all, the price is going to come down. There are many growers right now that are probably sitting on, you know, excess amounts of cannabis, and all this is going to do is make the illicit market out there thrive. And they could do it at half the prices that the dispensaries are selling it at, and the people that are buying it on the street don't have to pay the sales tax. So there's lots of flaws there. If we had outright legalization across the board, we wouldn't have to worry about medical marijuana, because anybody that wanted to use it for medicinal purposes could either grow their own or go to a dispensary and buy it, just like you go to the store and buy any other type of commodity in our free market society that we so-called have here in America. And this, you know, this is just something that I guess time is going to iron out all the rough spots in it and all, but the supply and demand is going to regulate the price. And making it outright legal for citizens, you know, where they're not going to be hassled by law enforcement, they can grow their own plants, whatever that number is. I'm not sure how these people drive, you know, like Alaska being able to grow 6 plants, and I think in Colorado it may be 9 plants, and Oregon maybe 28 or so, but I'm not sure who's in charge of deciding how many plants that a person can grow. I mean, when you put your garden in out there, you know, I've seen some people, they put, you know, 2 or 3 tomato plants, that's all they want. And somebody like me, I plant 30 or 40 of them, and I don't understand how this, you know, limiting the person to, you know, 6 or 8 plants. To me, what makes more sense is not have a regulation on how many plants they can grow. Let them produce as many as they feel like they need to produce. And what this is going to do, this is going to keep the illicit market from even having a foothold. It's the same thing as Prohibition was back in the late 20s and 30s in this country. We made gangsters because we made booze illegal, and we allowed all these corrupt and really notorious figures that, you know, build their coffers up with illegal liquor sales. And the same thing is gonna, you know, has been going on here with the cannabis for the last 40 years until we finally made it legal. So the legal route is the way to go. You know, we solve a lot of problems. We take this away from the illicit market. The cannabis will fall to, you know, wholesale prices like tobacco, which would be, you know, fairly low. And this is the way it should be. What this will do also, this will strengthen the ideas that we should be planting hemp in this country and start making the products and the fuel from it. And because the sales tax revenues from those types of sales and commodities is, you know, it's the sky's the limit compared to what you're going to get from the cannabis sales. Because the cannabis market, once the other states start making it legal and people are allowed to grow their own and all that, the price is going to fall through the floor. You're already seeing surpluses, I'm sure, and these are just going to somehow make it, you know, into an illicit trade and be sold even half of what the dispensaries are selling theirs for right now. Same varieties, it doesn't matter. They're all available, and you're going to be kidding yourself if you think you can hold that type of market for very long. You know, each state that goes ahead and passes legalization, which I think it should be done across the board and without vote. This is a matter of personal choice. It's my personal choice to use this herb, whether I want to use it for medicinal purposes, whether I want to use it for recreational purposes, or whatever. As long as I'm not causing harm to anybody else around me or anybody I know, either before, during, or after I've used this herb, I can't understand how there's anybody out there has domain over telling me that. You know, the laws should have never ever been on the books in the first place. Of course, we've argued this point for a long time. Over 4 decades, myself in my life, we've been, you know, arguing these same points, and it's always met with the same type of stupidity, over and over, the same type of remarks, over and over, from the same type of people that have been doing it for the last 4 decades and all. And it's just time for it to stop. I mean, it's all been a bunch of BS, and you have cannabis legal in the city where the federal government is, which houses the Drug Enforcement Agency, yet this is okay for them to go down to the, south of the border and party with cartel members, cocaine, prostitutes, just like other parts of our police, secret police government. And, and yet citizens are being arrested for cannabis in parts of the country, yet there's other parts of the country where they can legally go and buy it as they should be able to. I mean, boy, how messed up can things be? That's why I believe that the legalization in each of the states, if it's happened in one, it should already be that way in all the states. And I know when they made alcohol legal, each state had to ratify it and all, but it wasn't like it took them all very long, except with the exception of a few holdouts like Oklahoma that, went a little bit longer than some of the others, but ratification for all those came quick. And why are we still stuck in this dilemma of wanting to support the illicit market out there when it could so easily go away, just like the gangsters went away after they finally got smart and made liquor legal and started, taxing it. The government finally started making money on it. Why are we doing this? It's just beyond reproach. I just don't get it, and why we have to live in this type of society that promotes this type of ignorance when we already know. We've hashed out all of these issues with cannabis over the last 4 or 5 decades, and in the 75 to 80 years that it's been illegal. And we just, we keep letting the same people repeat the same BS and nothing ever gets done. And I applaud all these states that have done it right, that have at least made it legal. But we still need to go a little bit further than that and get this regulation, completely out of the way so that the actual sales tax revenues and all can be something that will help these communities. But it's not going to come from the cannabis alone. We've got to get hemp growing in this country. We've got to start making fuel from it. We've got to start making farm feed and stuff like that for the animals. We've got to start pressing the seed for all of the different chemicals and products that it can make, not to mention the cellulose fibers and of course the herds and stuff that, paper and stuff like that's made from. All of this can be done. We have the technology, we know how to do it, we know how to grow it, and the sales tax revenue from those products is going to so far exceed anything that would ever happen with the cannabis sales. If all 350 million people in this country smoked an ounce of cannabis a day, we could grow that on a very small amount of land. And the sales tax revenue on it, once you get everybody growing it that can grow their own or have states that are legal, there's not going to be a tremendous amount of sales tax revenue because you're not going to be able to sustain these illegal, illicit cartel prices that have been being charged at these dispensaries since it was made legal. That's the one thing that should have changed. When cannabis was selling on the street for $400 or $500 an ounce, you turn right around and put it in the dispensaries at that same rate and then put the sales tax on top of it. It's just wrong. And if anything, the price should have fallen, way below what the illicit market is right now, which is less than half of what the dispensaries are selling it for. So we're just promoting that trade in another form, and the only thing that's helping is that people aren't being hassled for small amounts of cannabis if they're caught on the street or in a traffic stop or something. But we've got to go further than that, and we've got to get these regulations completely out of the way so these businesses can actually behave like businesses and charge a normal sales tax rate, not some exorbitant figure just because it's cannabis. I thank you for joining the Cannabis Corner.